Sequels are often hit or miss. You can have a really good sequel like Tears of the Kingdom or have a really bad sequel like most sequels out there. But Jedi Fallen Order was really, really good. And I had a question back in June. How do you top Jedi Fallen Order? Now, Jedi Fallen Order had a few issues, being like the teleport, not being able to teleport was really stupid. I really wish there was more variety in the lightsaber combat, and the exploration was really boring. But overall, it's a near perfect game, like I said in this video, and I honestly think it stands up to the likes of something like Spider-Man PS4, even Star Wars Unleashed. But on April 28th, 2023, we got our answer with Jedi Survivor. So this game was panned upon release for its really, really bad running issues on PC, but it ran fine to me on PS5. It was criticized but it's overall, I think, a better game than Fallen Order. They fixed the issues with the exploration, fixed the issues with variety, and they even fixed the issues with maybe some characters I didn't like very much in Fallen Order. But this game also has some weaknesses, being I think the story is slightly worse in Survivor than it is in Fallen Order, and I think Fallen Order did a better job with the IP of Star Wars. But yeah, this is a way shorter intro than normal, but I'm Joshua from my studios. Make sure to like and subscribe, hit that bell, as we get into why Jedi Survivor is a big improvement. 5 years after the events of Fallen Order, Cal Kestis, who has parted ways with everybody like Seer and Marin and Grease, continues his fight against the Empire while working with Saw Gerrera, who we may know from Rebels and Andor. He's a big character in Star Wars, pre-Luke Skywalker. His latest mission has him teaming up with a bunch of mercenary friends, including someone named Bode, to infiltrate Coruscant and steal information from a senator. He then gets a run-in with the Ninth Sister, who survived her defeat on Kashyyyk, if you remember that, and Cal kills her, but not before she can kill all of Cal's friends with the exception of Bode. Once they get the information, Cal realizes that the Empire is only growing stronger, and all his attempts over the last 5 years have been for nothing. With the Mantis damaged during his escape from Coruscant, Cal seeks out Grease, who's on the planet of Kobo, to repair the damages. He crash lands on the planet and interacts with the local populace while also standing up to a criminal organization known as the Bedlam Raiders, who you fight a lot in the game, led by an armored person named Ravis. Cal reunites with Grease, and they go into a cave to find the parts to fix the Mantis. Cal finds an old bot named Z from the High Republic era, and he gives him a device to open up all the High Republic era chambers left on Kobo. He then learns that there's a device in the Forest Array that was trapped there 100 years ago. He frees her, and he travels to the Forest Array, where a Force vision of the High Republic Jedi Darren Gagan and Satine Correa discover a mystical planet named Tanalorr where supposedly no one can get to, so Cal thinks that the Empire can't find them. Then there's someone in the back of the tank who turns out to be Dagan, and he turns to the dark side as he has to fight Cal because he wants to go to Tanalorr after something happens. Cal then gets back and teams up with Bode and Grease to repair the Mantis and head to the planet Jedha, which you may know from Andor, where Seer's been working with Marin and still alive Andel Cordova, which I was surprised by, to rebuild the Jedi archives and help an organization called the Hidden Path. They find some information, and they realize that they need a special compass to navigate the Abyss, which is what's hiding Tanalorr. However, a pirate syndicate known as Nihil they assaulted Tanalorr, causing the Republic to withdraw from the planet and destroy the compass to keep them from using it. Dagan became obsessed to betray the Order just to get that key, but ended up getting his arm chopped off by the other Jedi that we saw in the Vision, and that's why he has a major vendetta against the Jedi in general. Cal and Marin, they confess their feelings to each other as they're in love, which is the main point of this game, is that Cal gets a blaster and he falls in love. Two things that Jedi really can't do. Until the whole point of this game is surviving. And they're able to salvage the compass to go to Tanalorr, but the Empire attacks, and as chaos erupts, Bode steals the compass and murders Cordova. Cal tries to stop Bode from escaping, but Bode defeats him, revealing that him himself is an Imperial spy and a fallen Jedi. Meanwhile, the Seer tries to prevent the Empire from getting the archive, but is killed while holding off Darth Vader to buy time for the Hidden Path to escape. Furious at Bode, Cal uses the locator being to track his location to the Nova system in an Imperial base. He infiltrates it and confronts Bode, who has his daughter right next to him. But after the Inquisitors killed his wife, he really went to the dark side and started working for Devik to work for an ISB, which is basically the Secret Service for the Empire. He runs away, and Cal uses the dark side in order to escape and is mad at himself for what he did, as he almost slipped and became super powerful, but he almost slipped to use the dark side. He then confronts Bode after realizing there is a way to get to Tanalorr, gets Tanalorr and kills Bode, but promises that he will keep Bode's daughter safe as they use Tanalorr as a new place for the Hidden Path. So that's like a really in-depth analysis of the story, but what did I really think of the story? Well, I thought it was both really good and a lot weaker than Fallen Order's story. For one, I really liked how the group split up and they had to come back to each other, because at the end of the day, like, they all had different goals in life. Seer wanted to rebuild the Order, but Cal just wanted to stop the Empire. Marin was also trying to find himself at the exact same time, which I found extremely interesting. I also really liked how throughout the story Cal is really moving away from the Jedi teachings and becoming his own hero in his own right. Because at the end of the day, the Jedi teachings were extremely strict, and yeah, they were basically a cult, and I think that it's extremely hard to operate in the era of the Empire if Cal wasn't able to move away from the teachings of the Jedi, honor what they stood for, which was protecting the galaxy and everyone in it, while also moving away from what made them weak in the first place. But he doesn't lose himself in the dark side, and is able to embrace his loved ones a lot like Ezra from Rebels, which I recommend watching if you haven't seen it. What are some weak points of the story? Number one is Bode's betrayal is extremely random to me. It wasn't really being set up. It said that he was do anything for his daughter, but it doesn't make sense to me. Although I still enjoyed his betrayal, and honestly, I didn't see it coming, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I also thought the story was just overall, the plot points it was a lot weaker than Fallen Order. Fallen Order was great with its story, and honestly, it's probably one of the better stories I've seen in gaming, so it's really hard to live up to it. Still a really good story, better than something like Miles Morales, Arkham Knight, even Arkham City. And I really hope that the third game can really follow up on the story, while also improving on its weak points and going back to the beauty that Fallen Order had for its story. And I really like how they progressed Cal's story throughout it. But yeah, and throughout the story, Cal faces lots of challenges. But speaking of challenges, let's talk about the gameplay. So the gameplay in Fallen Order was really bare bones, I hate to admit. The Force powers were cool, but at the end of the day, you really only had 2 lightsaber forms, and they were pretty basic in the way you could use them. Not a complaint, just more of an observation. But in this game, you have 5 major stances. The 5 major stances are, first, the single blade. The single blade is the most balanced. Didn't really use it throughout the game at all. It has even speed, even range, even damage, and what else? Even defense. The problem with being even in everything is that, yeah, you can use it in any situation, but it's also not good for any particular situation. Then goes the dual blade, which has great range, but suffers for damage and defense and speed, actually. Dual blade is probably the worst stance in the game. I think it sucks to use, and I really don't recommend anyone use it. Then goes dual wield. Dual wield is really good for speed, decent enough for damage, while suffering in really good for speed, really good for defense, but suffers in attack power and suffers in range. This is honestly, to me, the funnest stance to use in the game. I used it for about half the game, and it was a lot of fun to use. I really did enjoy using it. I thought it's pretty good for most situations. It doesn't have high enough damage. Then goes the blaster stance, which is surprising Cal's using it. It has really good, amazing range, amazing speed, but suffers with defense and damage. Honestly, probably my favorite stance in the entire game. It's really good for most situations. And honestly, I've only ever had this stance suffer when you're in like really close combat situations against like those big battle droids. If you're just in a genuine close range combat scenario, or especially a long range scenario, this is the perfect blaster stance. This is the perfect stance for probably 90% of people. It has both really good long range and really good close range. But there are just very certain like hitches, like very small moments where it kind of sucks. And to me, that's where the cross guard comes in. Guard is great with damage, great with range, but horrible for speed and horrible for... It's okay for defense. The crossguard is overall the best stance in the game, has amazing range, amazing damage, decent defense, but really bad speed. Mix out the blaster, which is pretty high in speed, and then you got the two stances you have equipped are high range, super amazingly high range, really good damage, really good speed, and defense that's probably the weakest stat you have, but still really, really good. Their gameplay also follows things like collecting Doma's chops, which is probably the worst part, although we'll talk about that in post-game. And the gameplay throughout the story is pretty similar. You have parkouring, you have basic combat against enemies, and there's a very... In Fallen Order, my biggest complaint with Fallen Order that I didn't really talk about was the enemy variety. Stormtroopers, a few monsters, that's all you're really getting with you play Fallen Order. In Survivor, there's Clone Wars enemies, Imperial enemies, Bedlam Raider is Imperial. Like, you face such a variety of enemies, it's crazy. You face the Bedlam Raiders, who are really heavy, but also pretty slow and predictable. The droids, which aren't really a threat, but if you ever played that one Force Tear, in numbers, they're pretty difficult to defeat. And just the enemy variety in this game is it's a lot better than in Fallen Order. And that's the biggest, that along with the lightsaber is probably the biggest upgrade of this game. But there's also something that people neglect, being the Force abilities really were good in Fallen Order. I don't really have an issue with them, but they are just so good in Survivor. For most of the game, you have a pretty weak Force flow, because they removed the ability to individually slow enemies, which makes the game a lot harder and harder to adapt to. I don't know if I like that change, but I understand, because if Jedi could just Force slow every enemy, it'd be overpowered. So they're trying to keep up with the canon and stuff. But at the end of the game, you unlock the Dark Side slow, which is really, really amazing. Like, it's extremely overpowered. But along with the Force slow, there's also the ability to Force confuse enemies to work with you, rise and then slam enemies, which is very useful for that droid battle I was talking about earlier. Also, you have mid-air dash now due to the fact that Marin gave you the ability to dash through force fields. You also have the ability to rise and immediately slam things, which is something you think Cal would know how to do. I don't know why he needs to be taught how to do that. It's as simple as force pull, but a little different, I guess. I mean, I'm no Jedi, but what's my thoughts on it? Overall, the Force is probably the biggest improvement. The lightsaber combat was very bare bones in Fallen Order, and it's a massive improvement. So is the parkour, but the Force is just the biggest improvement from Fallen Order. And the reason I'm not talking too much about gameplay is just because it's so similar to Survivor, but it's like the Arkham City of the franchise. They take the gameplay and they move it up to 11, with just everything being so much better, including the boss fights. And yeah, the boss fights are a lot better. They have bigger variety. Yeah, you fight Dagon twice, but that's okay because both boss fights are extremely different. Bode was probably the worst main boss fight in the game. Really not fun. More cinematic than anything, and had emotional weight. Not as much as emotional weight from facing like the third sister, but enough emotional weight to where it felt good to fight him with Marin. And I love the ending of the game too. Seer's death was impactful, and I really like the gameplay of this game and the story. But now let's talk about post-game. The biggest problem with Fallen Order, right? I talked about earlier how the enemy variety was bad, how the story was better, but the enemy variety was bad, and overall I think that Survivor was a better game. But by far, the biggest problem with Fallen Order was the post-game. The post-game was horrible in Fallen Order. It was just comprised of getting chests and Force Echoes. And while chests and Force Echoes are still in Fallen Order, or in Survivor, you have multiple things. Now you have the ability to change your outfits to really variety degrees, and it feels really good. I just really wish you could change the paint job of the Mantis. That is my only problem with this customization in this game. But beyond customization and getting chests and Force Echoes, there's also now Force Tears, which were a lot of fun to do. There's also there's a bunch of side quests you can do because you're on the main planet of Kobo. And let's talk about Kobo for a minute. Kobo is a massive planet. Kobo is probably the size of all the planets from Fallen Order together. I would say the open world is a solid twice the size in Survivor. I think it's a pretty good metric. You allows you to teleport everywhere, and overall, just the exploration factor is really, really good It's much better than it was in Fallen Order. The reason I'm talking about exploration and post-game is because, well, we're going to be exploring for most of post-game. Beyond Forest Terrace, there's Doma's Shop, which is probably, it's like Riddler trophies, if you've ever, it's akin to Riddler trophies in Arkham Asylum. It sucks to do. And it's awful. But I ended up getting them all done on stream. Check out, I'll link the playlist in the description. It's 48 parts. But it's a very, very long series. I also, really enjoyed the side quests with the bounty hunting missions. You could basically go around and do bounty hunting yourself, go after bounty hunters that are bounty hunting you, take them all out for rewards. And I did see the twist coming where she would be after you, but it was a welcome little last boss fight, and I had a lot of fun with it, especially when Boba Fett appeared. But yeah, the post game is probably and I really, really enjoyed the post game. But yeah, if this is your first time watching any of these videos, like I said earlier, like, hit the bell, and subscribe. If you like this video, check out my Fallen Order video or my Arkham Asylum video. They're both pretty good gaming videos by my means. If you like this format of this video, check out my the Flash video, best video I've ever put out by a mile. Thank you for the support on my Spider-Man video. It didn't do as good as my Flash video, but that video is almost at 600, over 600 views. So what am I gonna ask? It's still at the point of recording. It's got 360, which is really good. So it's going to become my second most viewed video of all time. Thank you for the recent support on YouTube. All of my videos that I've been putting out the last 2 months have broken records to the point where it went from my videos, back in 2020, if my videos reached 100 views, that would be massive. Now, if a video doesn't reach 200, to me it seems a failure if it doesn't reach at least 250. That's how much you guys have supported my videos. Thank you for also supporting my SpongeBob streams. They've been doing good for some reason. And yeah, make sure to check them out. Earlier this week, I had Wi-Fi. As of this video releasing, I had Wi-Fi issues. Again, I know I've had a bunch of Wi-Fi issues over the last few months. If you live in the US, especially in New England, you'll know Comcast/Xfinity. They're awful to work with, and their Wi-Fi sucks. As of the recording of this video, I'm having somebody come over later this week to fix up the issue. Oh, because I just got a new router, and there's already another issue. But that's more just gibberish. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, and yeah, stay electric.